You have to fail in order to succeed. That's just the bottom line.
This is Stay Paid, a sales and marketing podcast on a mission to help you close more deals and retain more business.
Welcome to another episode of Stay Paid. I'm Joshua Stike along with Luke Acree. And before we bring on our guest today, we'd love it if you take a minute to subscribe to Stay Paid on Apple Podcasts. If you're not already, and while you're there, drop us a review to let us know how we're doing. We'll read it here on the show. This week's featured review comes from GCK2 via Apple Podcasts. They comment on Vanessa Saunders' interview. Yes. So the title says, "Loved Vanessa Saunders, 5 stars. How I wish more people had the attitude that Vanessa has towards her clients. Treating people with kindness, empathy, and common courtesy will always be the key to repeat clients and referrals, perhaps more now than ever, considering how rare these game changers are. Everyone who listens should take a note from Vanessa's book." That was from episode 381. Nice. That was actually one of our...
GCK?
GCK2.
GCK2.
Yeah,
shout out to GCK.
One of our real estate leaders.
Nice. Love it.
Interviews. Check that out. Our guest today is Tim Garrity. Tim is a partner in the broker of record at Copper Hill Real Estate in the greater Philadelphia area. With decades of experience in the mortgage, new construction, and real estate sectors, Tim has grown Copper Hill from 3 co-founders and agents and $10 million in volume to over 40 agents today and $100 million in volume. Tim's goal is to personally help agents walk, crawl, and run by helping them start, grow, and most importantly, retain their own book of business. Tim, welcome to Stay Paid. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, fellas. I'm very excited to be here. I'm a huge fan.
Tim, thank you so much. I'm excited for this episode because we're going to dive in. If you've ever thought about starting your own brokerage, which I know tons of our listeners probably have, we're going to talk about that because Tim did it. And we're going to talk about building a team and how to motivate, how to lead generate, how to lead distribute. But talk to us a little bit about your history, like how you even got into real estate. Lead us up to today, and then let's dive into this topic of why you started your brokerage.
Absolutely. Just a brief background on me. Born and raised in suburban Philadelphia till the ripe age of 18. Went to LaSalle University in the city of Philadelphia. So that was my first experience of urban city life, and I absolutely loved it. Just the culture, the diversity, the history. It was just way different than everything I grew up with. You know, even though I was just outside the city, it was quieter, it was calmer, didn't have as much of that. Got into the mortgage industry right out of college, basically. And when I got in, I started as a street loan officer, 100% commission, you know, popping into real estate offices, which again, people did that back then with paper rate sheets. A lot of cold calling, a lot of emailing, a lot of texting, did a lot of networking. I parlayed that into a management position when I was 24 with Pulte Homes, which is one of the largest residential home builders in the United States. And that was a huge education for me, not only on myself as a person who's growing in business, but also on corporate America and just understanding, like, how does this whole thing work? Unfortunately, I was there for about 6 years. They wanted me to, how do I put it, grow with the company, meaning they wanted me to relocate where the opportunities suited the company. After offering me about 3, I mean, I'm just in love with Philadelphia. This is my home. My friends and family are here. This is what I aspire to just stay with my entire life. This is just awesome. I just, you know, I said thank you, but no thank you. And then 2 months later, I got laid off. And that, to be honest, was the fire that I needed to go off on my own and go down the entrepreneurial path, because I was pretty entrepreneurial as a kid too. Sold papers when I was 8 years old, you know, did a lot of jobs that people didn't do, like rented beach equipment in Ocean City, New Jersey on one of the beaches. Again, like taking cash, writing things down, setting up umbrellas, you know, not your typical childhood. That was about 13. So just kind of led me into real estate. And I knew that the sky was the limit and I could be my own boss. So that's kind of what got me in.
So talk to us a little bit about, so you leave Pulte Homes. Did you jump in at that point to being a real estate agent yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and the way I did it too, which is non-traditional, a lot of people, especially here with your brother and his team, a lot of people decide to join teams when they get in. Now, teams, you know, 15 years ago, like almost when I was like just getting in, they weren't as popular. Now they're huge and they're built differently because there's just so much education out there. There's so much structure. There's books on it. There's webinars. There's YouTube. But when I got in, I didn't want anyone to kind of like, you know, take me down a path that worked for them but didn't work for me. That was kind of what I learned in corporate America is they wanted me to jump and I was supposed to say how high. And I know that works for plenty of people out there. It just didn't work for me. It wasn't a good fit. So when I got in, I started in like a tiny little 6-person office in Brewery Town. Everyone was younger and smarter than me. Most of them went to Penn. And I just said, I want to learn this from the ground up. And they were working with investors, which is what I was truly interested in. I wanted to understand the development investment game. Like, why are people buying row homes in Philadelphia and like putting 50 grand into them and renting them or flipping them? Or why are people repurposing warehouses into lofts? Or why are people repurposing, unfortunately, like churches throughout the city and turning it into creative office space or restaurants or apartments? So I was just very passionate about that. So that's kind of how I started. I wanted to start kind of without any interference from like big box shops or like teams and such.
How many years did you do that before transitioning to like building a team yourself or doing your own brokerage? Like, walk us through a little bit of that journey.
Sure. So in my first year, this is definitely a wake up call and people can understand this. So I got into real estate when I was 30. I was making around $100K at Pulte. I got in my first year in real estate. I made $15,000.
Nice.
It was 2010. I was working 60 hours a week, hustling. I was going to night school to finish my MBA because Pulte somehow like persuaded me to go back to my MBA and grow with the company. And then when I was halfway through, I lost my job. So I kind of said, you know what, I'm going to get this thing done. So I really busted my hump the first year to make that much money. In my second year, I tripled that. So a lot of the roots I laid in year one started to kind of like, grow. And I'm like, okay, like some of that stuff I did is like working. And a lot of it was like blogging. That was some of my ground level stuff.
When you say blogging, just so I understand, like you were literally writing blogs about real estate in the city. Were you like, what type of blogging were you doing right then?
Most of the blogging I was doing was about like resurgence of different Philadelphia neighborhoods or even like development downtown. Like the Comcast Center, the first Comcast Center was going up. And I was talking about why that was huge for Philly. And a lot of people didn't realize that. Like Verizon left town for New York. It's like Comcast.
So you were doing content marketing
dollars
way back before everybody was doing content marketing, really. 2010 timeframe.
And it's not like I was a journalism major. I mean, I was marketing for my undergrad, but I just got good at writing. I just kind of was like trial and error. My first couple posts were like a few sentences, and then they became like, a couple pages after a while.
So you tripled your second year. Did you triple your third, or what happened next?
No, I didn't go that crazy, but I did pretty well. It wasn't my third year, actually, to answer your initial question. That's when I said, what is a broker's license in real estate? Like, why are some agents who are selling a broker, and why are some agents who are selling a salesperson? That's what they're called in Pennsylvania. You're either broker or salesperson. And I learned that becoming a broker allows you to do your own thing. You can start a brokerage. You can start a brokerage through Keller Williams, eXp. You can start a brokerage from scratch, which is what I did with Copper Hill. And that was really where my interest was. So years 3 to 5, I took all my classes. I had enough credits to take the test, pass the test. And in year 5, that's when I took on my brother Ryan and my brother from another mother, which is Andrew. And then the 3 of us started Copper Hill from scratch. So that was in year 5.
So what made you make that decision? Was it just this entrepreneurial passion to kind of not go this, I guess I would call it a safe route with one of the other franchises and literally start your own business from scratch?
Yeah, I think it was because not only, I had the marketing background, I had the corporate America background, but my MBA was in management and I loved it. I did very well in my MBA. I was very passionate about what I was learning. So I realized I was a pretty good manager of people. Most teams form from salespeople, not from managers. Salespeople get too busy, so they're like, let me bring some people on. Or salespeople want to get bigger, so let me bring some people on. I feel like I was more naturally a manager. And I had Ryan and Andrew, and they said, look, we want to build this thing too. And they were very entrepreneurial as well. Like, we can do this. Like, no one's going to stand in our way. So I just think with that in general, that's kind of like why I decided to do that. It wasn't like day one when I got into real estate, I want to have a brokerage. But after a couple of years and working for small brokerages, I just looked at it and said, I feel like I could do it better. And owning a brokerage, in my opinion, was better than owning a team. It just gave you more freedom, more flexibility, and more sky's the limit income, in my opinion.
Where'd the name Copper Hill come from? I'm just curious.
All right, so I'm going to be straight off this story. This is no BS. So it was me, Ryan, and Andrew. Ryan's roof deck in Northern Liberties, which is one of the neighborhoods in Philadelphia, got a 30-pack and sat there and drank and just threw out all sorts of names and concepts.
That's perfect.
Yeah, I was very clean and logical. Like it should be city or urban. And my brother Ryan's super creative, and he was like, "Hey, I have elements iron and copper, and I have hill and bridge and oak and just all these terms." And we just threw it together. And he was like, "What about Copper Hill?" And Andrew and I looked at each other.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, that's true entrepreneurship right there. Just hey, what about this?
Grab a 30-pack, come up with the name.
All right, so talk about recruiting, right? How'd you recruit your first agents? How do you go about that process of trying to get agents to join Copper Hill? I mean, it's so competitive out there, right? Of teams recruiting, franchises recruiting. Why do they join you? What's your process to try to get them?
Yeah, so our strategy to recruiting, Luke, was really what I do for all of my real estate training for my agents is I just put it really simply. Go with what you know. So what did I do? I grew up in Philadelphia and I networked. Oh, my cousin just got his license. He doesn't want to work for a big box shop. He wants to work for someone small and learn. So we grew organically, probably with our first 10. That was based on relationships. After that, honestly, we just got creative. We're like, hey, let's give some better splits, or let's have a cap system, or let's find creative ways for them to feel like they're running their own business and not so much like red tape corporate structure that a lot of these big companies have. I mean, most people don't know this. As much as teams seem like they can do what they want, there's a lot of red tape. Like you can do this, but you can't do these 10 things. And we looked at it as Andrew, Ryan, and I are the 3 decision makers. So if you have an idea and say, hey, can I do this? Or can I run my team this way? We're like, that's a fantastic idea. And then we would talk it over and be like, yes, you can do that. So our agents kind of helped write our own, let's call it handbook, let's say, and how things, started to form. And then after that, it really became about, getting the brand out there. So, the 3 of us just really hustled, going out, shaking hands, meeting banks, meeting title companies, contractors, business events with financial planners, accountants, attorneys.
So a ton of word of mouth.
Passing out cards, and people are like, wow, that's great. We started your own company. So that's really how we did it.
It makes so much sense. Isn't it funny how it's it doesn't matter if you're selling real estate, selling the agents to join your team. It's all the fundamental of the business is word of mouth. It's relationship driven, word of mouth. Who do you know and who do they know? Talk to us a little bit about, you're recruiting agents onto the team, right? You're trying to make them successful. You're now up to how many? 40 plus or?
Yeah, we have about 40.
Okay, 40 on the team. What do you teach agents in the keys to the business? What are some of the fundamental tips you would give to an agent right now to be successful as we head into 2023?
So if you're new, let's say you've been doing this 3 years or less, which a lot of people have, the agent count has grown rapidly in the last few years because, again, business was booming. Still doing well today, but, it was booming before COVID. When COVID hit, it was silent for a couple months, and then it just took off like a rocket ship. And for me, a lot of what I teach, my philosophy is every agent should have their own book of business. And I look at that as this isn't about there's sphere of influence. There's, you have your family, you have your friends, you have your coworkers, you have all this stuff. But a book of business to me is a captive audience that whether they or someone they know is going to buy, sell, or rent real estate, they're going to drop your name or work with you. And building a book of business is very similar to a lot of stuff that you guys talk about. It's know, like, and trust. And the only way they become part of your book of business is through trust. And a lot of that I did personally through blogging. And when I would write and people would read, they're like, wow, Tim really understands real estate, knows what he's talking about, and he's seeing the trends in the cities. What's the hot neighborhood? Why is this one overpriced? Where's the next hot neighborhood? And a lot of that was really not only in writing and researching, but boots on the ground. I mean, in the first couple of years, I'm like, any client that would come my way, it'd be like a $700 rental in West Philadelphia. And I'm like, I'm going because I want to see why it's only $700 to live on that block in West Philadelphia. Why is that?
That's so good. I remember my brother saying that in his first year, he would take every lead, every deal that he possibly could. And obviously he, like you, is starving and eating ramen noodles, right? But at the same time, he's going, that's the only way you learn, or that's the most effective, thing that's going to teach you really, really quickly is when you get out there and experience the crazy buyer, experience the crazy deal, experience what's actually happening, boots on the ground. It's just nothing to teach you like that, because you can have the head knowledge, but if it doesn't translate to the heart knowledge to where you actually know and feel and can live and breathe it, then you can't execute on it. Here's a struggle that I think a lot of teams run into in brokerages. How do you hold your agents accountable? Like you have 40 agents. How do you make sure they're actually closing and they're not just hanging a license with you?
The number one thing I do is an annual plan. Okay. So couple of the foundational things that Copper Hill offers. I encourage every agent at the end of a calendar year to meet with me, sit down one-on-one for at least an hour or two, have an annual plan. And that annual plan is very simple. This is just how I do things, very simple. I don't overcomplicate it. I'm not like dividing things and like squaring it and like putting in like 8 different calculations. I look at 3 things that run your real estate business: units, volume, and income. How many units do you want to do, whether they're rentals or sides or sales? How much volume do you want to do? If you're doing a lot of rentals, you're doing low volume. Well, how much income do we think we can make by the first 2? And by doing those things and having everyone say, this is how many units I think I'm going to do, which transitions to this amount of volume because it's a balance of sales and rentals. So we figure that out. And this is how much income I will make based on my split with Copper Hill. Then they set down that path of like, this is what I have to be doing. On top of that, I offer monthly mentoring to every agent at the company. And I have a calendar link. Hey, click on it, book it. I remind everyone once a month. Sometimes I'm emailing, sometimes I'm texting them or calling them and say, hey, I haven't seen you in 6 months. We got to meet. Wow. And then another thing we started doing this calendar year that's actually been very successful for our team because, we're a real tight-knit group. We have very low attrition, which is rare in real estate.
Yeah,
but,
that is.
We do bi-weekly sales meetings. So every 2 weeks, we get on a Zoom so that it's convenient for everyone because everyone's in different areas, like either in the city or the burbs. And at every sales meeting, I teach something for about 20 to 30 minutes. And it's all different. It's like topics from Inman. I've used your podcast for inspiration.
Dang.
Other podcasts.
Man, you make me feel good here.
It's in my training.
That's awesome.
Because it's fantastic. Like when I train and say, this is what I think, or this is how I've applied it, or this is why I think it's good for you. I'm like, listen to the podcast, go back to the link and listen to it yourself, because maybe the way I delivered it is different than the way Josh and Luke delivered it, or the person that you had on.
Yeah, it might connect with them differently.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like, it's not like Copper Hill has this book, this is all of our stuff, and this is all we have. I piggyback off what's going on in the market and content and let them use that to their advantage.
Can you talk a little bit about, like, do you do any lead generation for your agents, or is that fully their responsibility? That's like Copper Hill. Do you guys do any lead generation for the agents?
We do. So a couple different ways. Most of what we do is organic.
Okay.
So we're very big on content. Social media, we're big on Instagram, and everything we do is very original. We haven't bought any followers. It's like everyone we have, we've earned. 2, we're very big on blogging and having content about the greater Philadelphia area. So like if you go to our website, there's, information on like different neighborhoods in the city, as well as different condo buildings in the city, because we do a lot of condo sales. And we have education in that. And that brings in a lot of leads. It's a lot of SEO because not a lot of people have that content out there in Philadelphia. Like the way we do it, as succinctly as we do, as in depth as it is. And that's like years ago. So we do get, a decent amount of cold leads every week that we just pass out.
So make sure I'm understanding, to break down like almost tactically, your content that you're putting out. Are you taking like different zones of the city and actually writing about what's happening in that market? So almost like a market report, but probably a little bit more in depth or a little bit more blog style. Is that one of the ways you're putting out content, is literally, hey, taking these zones?
Yeah, we have 2 different ways to look at that, Luke. The first is we actually give our own description of the neighborhood. This is where this neighborhood is located. Then we say, how easy is it to get to and from the neighborhood? Are you going to Center City? Are you going to the burbs? Are you going to the shore? Then we talk about what's the scene like? Good restaurants? Is it more like, pharmacies and banks? So then we really have our own original content about our own opinion, as well as some facts about all these different neighborhoods in Philadelphia. Then we do quarterly reports. So then we take those neighborhoods every quarter, say, here's where it was a year ago. Here's the number of listings, the number that sold, days on market, our prices trending up or down. And then we email that out to our network every quarter. So the combination of the two shows that we're neighborhood experts in the city. And now we're slowly starting to take that out to the burbs. Because again, if we're running 50-50, 50% in the city and 50% in the suburbs in the last few years, we need to be content experts and town experts, let's call it.
So you're sending out that kind of quarterly. How big is your database right now that you're marketing to with Copper Hill?
Our database is probably right around 7,000 people. So it's nothing crazy. But at the end of the day,
but if they're real,
I probably don't know 45,000 or who the hell they are. Like, I look at it as like everyone that we have in our database are past sales, past rentals, friends, family, coworkers.
Yeah, it's real
contacts,
vetted
title
people.
Contacts, attorneys, lawyers. I mean, it's like everyone that we know as a collective group.
What else do you drip on them? So you're doing that quarterly drip. What else do you guys tend to drip on your 7,000?
We do a monthly newsletter as well.
Okay.
The monthly newsletter is, again, it's pretty original. Like, I see monthly newsletters. It's like, hey, here's 5 ways to winterize your home, which, again, not saying that's not good.
I was like, wait a second. He's talking about our stuff right now, Josh. Jeez, no.
Your stuff is fantastic. I've actually gotten the magazine.
No, it's okay. I totally get what you're saying. Yeah, that's it's always the issue with content is that you want to balance curate it with original. And that balance always comes into play, I think, of people's time, right? Their bandwidth, right? So the less bandwidth you have, the more curated you go, the more bandwidth you can afford, or the more focused time you can give to it, the less curated. The beautiful thing is do authentic content. If you could do 100% authentic, that's better. It's just hard to do that, obviously, bandwidth wise. But I totally get what you're saying. So you're doing a newsletter. Are you creating that yourself? Like writing
we create it ourselves. We have our hands on it. I do a lot of it. I used to outsource it, and it got to a point where I feel like I'm not really thrilled with this. It takes me an hour a month for our entire network to make sure that's a solid drip campaign. And so we usually do one of our blog posts. So if they're not looking at our website, we put in our original content. Then we do maybe 3 to 4 listings. This is what we're working on in different neighborhoods or in the suburbs.
Love it.
And then we do usually just like a lifestyle piece. It's like, new restaurant in the city. Here are the 5 best places to get breakfast at diners, or food events in the city. So that kind of plays into people who are more interested in like culture. And that's not our content. We're just sharing an article that we like.
Love that. All right. So here's a question for you, kind of switching gears. I wanted to ask you is, why do a brokerage when you can join an EXP? Like, we've had so many EXP top producers on, right? And they can't help themselves. One thing I do love about EXP is they do have a movement that has evangelized so many people that they can't help but evangelize others. But, I'm brand agnostic. I have clients in literally pretty much every brokerage. Why join or start your own brokerage instead of joining an EXP or a Keller Williams or a Remax? Like, what's the argument there, do you think, for people to think through?
I think, honestly, for me, I looked at it as like, I really want to be a true entrepreneur and a true business owner. Now, not to take anything away from teams, but the teams exist because of the brokerage's rules, and the brokerage's training material and team growth material and marketing material and all that. So they want more of like a business in a box. It's kind of like, why do you open up a McDonald's when you can just start Tim's Burger Shop? Well, McDonald's, again, fantastic product. Everyone knows what you're getting there. It's always going to be consistent. But if you go to Tim's Burger Shop, maybe I get my beef locally, and maybe I season it perfectly, and I use, the right combination of cheese and condiments and lettuce, tomato, onion that is nothing like McDonald's. So I think the way I looked at it initially is like, I really want to have a company where we have our own say on what that burger is like, how high quality it is. And everything we built our brokerage on is really on customer service. And again, not to take away from anyone, but one of the big problems I saw when I first got into real estate coming from corporate America was like unprofessionalism. It's like everyone's running in 50 different directions. No one has a boss because you're 1099. And whether you're on a team or not, you're only as good as your team leader. And if your team leader is selling and out there on the street all day, you're probably not getting a whole lot of guidance from him or her. Maybe you're getting fed and you're writing business, but you don't know what you're doing, especially if you're new. When we did our brokerage, the number one thing we said, we want to create streamlined approaches to be paperless, to use tech to our advantage, and make sure the customer service before and after the sale is flawless. And that's really what we wanted to build with our brand. And I feel like customer service in general has really only started becoming a big topic in real estate in the last like half decade. Because before that, it was all sales. It's like sell. Who's number one? It's like, you can be number one, and if all your clients hate you, what good is it? Because you're just chasing after the next cold deal, which it's a relationship business, in my opinion. And we wanted to, every relationship we had, we wanted to embrace and nurture along and say, look, whether this is your first time house, your move up house, or your vacation home, or your investment property, like we want you to be a client for life at Copper Hill. And that was really what we strive to do with our own brokerage.
I love that. Love the customer-centric focus. I'm also very hungry now. I want one of those Tim's burgers.
I mean, I can crush a burger
fantastic.
Too. So,
it's right around lunch.
You're serving, Josh, why don't you flip one over to my side of the screen?
A couple mindset questions for you, Tim. Obviously, as a business owner, you've had to deal with failure. You're probably having to coach your agents on how to deal with failure. Kind of, how have you dealt with failure in your past, whether that's in growing your business or in your real estate career?
Yeah, for me, I personally look, you have to fail in order to succeed. That's just the bottom line. Everyone who feels like they can avoid failure in order to get ahead in business is not learning a thing, because it's not really until you have a deal or a client or, let's just say an opportunity to like develop, because we do development, and it slips through your fingers. Do you really say to yourself, why did that happen? Like, why did it slip through my fingers? Was it my fault? Was it someone else's fault? And in my opinion, it's always going to come back to you and how you started from the beginning. Maybe you forgot to ask the right questions, or maybe you got too arrogant, or maybe you just were too green in general and you didn't know what you were doing. No matter what it is, you're going to look back on that and say, excuse me, I'm not going to do that again, because I don't want to have that feeling again. I don't want to have that opportunity or that client slip through my fingers again. And again, that's good, because the next time you have that opportunity, your client is going to be happier. That opportunity is going to be that much greater. So try and look at it as like, at the end of the day, if you're not failing, you're not growing, you're not learning, and therefore you probably won't succeed the way you truly want to in your mind. Whether you're in real estate or finance or insurance or anything else, business related, you have to make mistakes and reflect in order to grow. That's my honest opinion.
No, I love the self-accountability there, also asking yourself what went wrong and what you could have done better. Last question for you. Is there a principle or a mantra that you live by?
There is actually, Josh. And for me, I grew up, I went through the Catholic school system. So I have that in my background. I'd say nowadays I'm a little bit more spiritual. I meditate. I just look at life as it's the golden rule. Treat others as you would like to be treated. So if you get to a situation where someone, like, let's say it's a client or another agent, or it's like a development deal, and someone is just driving you up a wall and you're like ready to flip out, which all of us do in our lives, we're ready to lose our cool. You just look at it as like, if I say that or do that, is that what I would want someone to do to me? Like if someone's about to blow their top, would I want them to do that to me? And that allows you to kind of think before you act, in my opinion. And, when things go wrong, which they always do in real estate and in business, you got to look at that as like, it went wrong for a reason. Maybe it was partially my fault. Maybe it was all my fault. But at the end of the day, if you flip out on someone because you're emotionally upset about something not working out, I mean, they're not going to appreciate that. They're going to feel twice as bad. And it's almost like, here's a great example in real estate. We've been in a crazy market the last couple of years. You go look at a house, there's 20 offers on it, and you're with your clients, you've been with them for 6 months, they've lost 5 times. Very, very common. You get that call from that agent and they say, Hey, Tim. Yeah. Hey, it's Sue. Here's the deal. They went with another offer. I'm very sorry it didn't work out. And my client went like 25% over asking. And you just want to like take your phone and be like, and you can't do that because you got to look at it as like, this person's dealing with a lot of stress on their end. As much as they're getting the sale done and I am not, they got to make 20 calls and let 19 people down and tell them why they didn't get it. There could be crying, there could be yelling, screaming. I'm not going to add to that. I look at that as like, I appreciate it. Congratulations on getting the offer that you did. And I'm moving on to the next one because the more positive we are moving forward, the better it's going to be for my client and myself.
Yeah, very well said. I've seen a lot of screenshots shared on Instagram where people don't respond as well to those types of those messages. So
like, that's not
doing that.
Like, the email, do I have to follow up again? Like,
no, you will set yourself apart if you treat others like that. So thank you so much, Tim, for being here. Before we close out, please let everyone know how they can connect with you.
Absolutely. Good ways to connect with me in Copper Hill Real Estate. CopperHillRE.com is in real estate. We're big on Instagram. I have a personal Instagram account. Copper Hill has their own handle. I'm sure you can find us, no problem. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Check out our website, our blog, our neighborhood pages, anything we can do to help anyone in the Philadelphia area or across the country. Anyone want to pick my brain about brokerage or teams, happy to help anytime I can.
Awesome, brother. Thank you again for being here. And thank you all for listening. We're going to include those links that Tim mentioned in the show notes over at staypaidpodcast.com. Also go over there for the video so you can see Tim's background. We said before he jumped on the call today, like, it's like the most perfectly, we thought it was a virtual background.
Yeah, it is insane.
I think it's the best background that we've seen.
My wife has good taste.
There you go. That was smart. All right. If you enjoyed this episode and want to show your support, the first way we ask is head on over to Apple Podcasts, drop us a 5-star review along with a comment. And the best way to show your support is to share this episode on your social media. Share it with a friend. If you want to get hold of me or Luke, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com. And of course, you can find us on social media as well. We are at Stay Paid Podcast. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Joshua Stike.
Guys, I'm Luke Acree. Tim, thank you so much. Great episode. And love that you're local, man. So excited to get to know you more. I'm going to go check out your neighborhood pages and what you're doing. Here's my action item for everybody, which is right in that vein is, are you putting out educational content? So in real estate, you just got a perfect example of a drip piece that you can do, which is what zones are you focused in, what city, what town, what neighborhood, and are you putting out educational reports every quarter to your database to show them that you're the agent of trust, that you know the community, you know real estate, and you can be their agent of trust to help them buy or sell. But this applies to every industry, whether you're in insurance, finance, mortgage. Like, there is educational content out there that you can consistently put out of your understanding of your market that will elevate the credibility of you in the mind of the consumer. You need to be dripping on your clients that consistently so they see you as that agent of trust. Remember, the difference between top producers and mediocre producers in every single business is top producers take action. Take action on that today.